up guys, this is KhUnlimited and today I have another video for you guys, and the topic for this video is if Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance will be possible on the PlayStation 3. Now a lot of you might be wondering is why I'm talking about the PS3. Wouldn't the PS4 be a better choice? Wouldn't it be easier to develop it for it? Because if you didn't know, well, most people do know, PS4 has a touchpad, and that will make the lives of Square Enix much easier when developing the game, since a lot of the features in Dream Drop Distance rely on touch, and if they do develop for the PS4 it'd be much easier since they have the touchpad to work with. But the reason I'm talking about PS3 today is because it'd be smarter if Square Enix made the game for the PS3. And why, you might ask? The reason all the HD remixes were even started is so the consumers or the customers, the fans of Kingdom Hearts, could play all the games on one system. If they made Dream Drop Distance HD on the PS4, it would be basically breaking that statement they made, and there would be no point in the remixes. Cause like I said, put in the remixes so you can play all the games on one system, and then when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, then jump to the PS4. If they have like some of the games on the PS3, then the last game of the HD remake on the PS4 would be kind of useless. And I'm not saying that they could, after they're all done on the PS3, they could port it to PS4. I'm okay with that, but at least put all of them on the PS3, because some people don't have PS4s yet. Even me myself, I got it like 2 months ago, and some people don't have it, and it would be pretty shitty for them if they play like 1.5, 2.5 and they can't experience Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance just because that's on the PS4 because of demand. So like I started out with, the PS4 it would be easy to make it for, but how would it be done on PS3? Would it even be possible on PS3? So that's what this video is about. I'm going to be talking about how would it be possible, what they could change to fit it to be more in a PS3 type game and lose all the touch features. So there's two main features in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance that heavily rely on touch features. First of all, reality shifts, and second is playing with the dream meters. So first of all, we're going to be talking about reality shifts, what they are, how they work, and how they can change it so it works on PS3. So firstly, in Traverse Town, there's a reality shift called Slingshot. For this, on the 3DS, you would use the touchscreen to basically slingshot an object or a dream meter to damage another dream meter. So you would use a touchscreen for that, obviously, and the solution for that, in my opinion, on the PS3 should be, instead of just using the touchscreen, you would use an analog stick to control the slingshot. I think that could easily be done, and it basically is the same thing. Some games do, however, you use an analog stick to use a slingshot. So you would just control with the left analog stick, use a slingshot. When you're done, let go, or even better, press X and it just shoots, and I think that's how it should be done. In La Cité de Cloche, there's a reality shift called Faith Line, and on the 3DS you would use the touchscreen to draw a path between points for Sora or Riku to grind on, and the solution on the PS3 would either be one of these two things that I thought up. Either that you could control the line with the analog stick, so basically you start at a designated point, you control the line with the analog stick. When you're on another point you press X, when you go on the next point you press X, so you could set it like that. Or this idea, which I kind of like better, each point on the screen is mapped with a button. So let's say one of the point is shows an X beside it, another one shows a square beside it, another one shows triangle beside it. So basically you just press X to go on one point. If you want to go to the triangle point, press triangle, then those are connected. If you want to go to the square point next, press square, it connects it with that. And basically all the dots or points on the screen are mapped to a button, so when you're done connecting them, it obviously just finishes. And I think that'd be much quicker to do than an analog stick way, and it would just work better too. In the grid, there's a reality shift called Code Break, and for this on the 3DS, a bunch of words start appearing on the screen, and then some certain words start appearing with a certain color, then they go away after a second. So to be successful in this reality shift, the player must press two words that are the same color, then the reality shift ends. So basically the solution for me on the PS3 for this is, when each word appears, like the one for Faith Line in La Cité de Cloche, when there's a button mapped for each dot, for this will be a button map for each word. So say a red word comes up, there'll be an X beside it, then you press X, and if another red word comes up, maybe there's a triangle beside it, something like that. So it's kind of challenging to the player. You don't know what button's gonna come up, so it's still challenging in a way, and it still works perfectly good. It'll be exact same thing as the original one on the 3DS. It'll work the same, but at the same time will be a little difficult for a person who doesn't have that good reaction time. So yeah, just map buttons to each word that comes up. In Prankster's Paradise, there's a reality shift called Bubble Burst. For this on the 3DS, you aim a barrage of bubbles towards a dream meter, and to be successful you have to continually hit the dream meter for about 1 to 3 seconds. And the solution for this is kind of easy. You just basically, instead of using the touchscreen to control the bubbles, you just use an analog stick. That one's pretty simple, and it could be done easily on the PS3. In the country of the Musketeers, the reality shift is Wonder Comic. On the 3DS, for this, there's a series of tasks that come to the player. The player will either have to swipe in a certain direction, repeatedly tap the screen, or make a circling motion on the screen. Now this one's a bit more complicated because you do have to use the touchscreen and do different motions, so it'd be harder to come on the PS3, but the solution for me is for the directional swipes, you would be able to push the analog stick in your desired direction. So for example, if it tells you to swipe up, you just basically hit the left analog stick up. If it tells you to swipe down, hit it down, something like that. For the spiraling motion, it would be basically the same thing. You would just spin the analog stick instead of using your stylus, and I've seen this done in a lot of games where you have to spin the analog stick, so I know this can work. And for the screen tapping, it could just be basically you're repeatedly tapping X. So for the swipes, you would swipe your analog stick. For the spiraling motions, you would spin your analog stick, and for tapping the screen, you would just repeatedly tap X, and I think that would perfectly work for the Wonder Comic Reality Shift. In Symphony of Sorcery, there's a reality shift called Melody Catcher. So on the 3DS, you would have to use your touchscreen to guide a musical note along a certain path, and you have to stick to its speed. So if it's going slowly, you have to make sure your stylus goes slowly with it. If it's going fast, you have to make sure your stylus goes fast with it. And then after that, certain notes come on the screen where you have to tap at a certain time to be successful, kind of how it was done in Atlantica in Kingdom Hearts 2. Now the solution for me on the PS3 will be when the musical note is going on the certain path, if you notice the path is never horizontally straight but it's a bit curved. So what I was thinking is that the musical note automatically will go from left to right, but then with your analog stick you would have to control how high or low it goes. So if it just keeps going right and you don't control it, then you get off path, and obviously you're not gonna win the reality shift. But if you have to control the height, so when it's going right and if the curve is going up, you would have to move your analog stick up so it stays on the path. When it's going down, you have to move your analog stick so it goes down and it stays on the path. So you have to do something like that, and it makes the most sense. And for the part when you're pressing the music notes, I think it should be done exactly how it was in Kingdom Hearts 2 with Atlantica. That's what it basically is in Dream Drop Distance, is when the circle comes and closing on the musical note, you just press X, then it will say good or excellent or whatever it is. And yeah, that one's pretty simple. Now the last reality shift is in the world that never was, which is Nightmare's End / Mirage Split. Depends on whether it's Riku or Sora, but they basically have really similar ones. But on the screen I'm going to be showing Sora's. So for this on the 3DS, there's a few chains on the screen with white links on them. So basically what the player has to do in 3 swipes or less, he has to break the chains by breaking the white object. So when you swipe, you have to touch the white object and the chain breaks. And you have to break the chains in 3 swipes or less. So for me, the solution on the PS3 would be that instead of anyone swiping, there's basically going to be this long dotted line that goes across the screen. And the way you would have to control it is using your analog stick. You would basically rotate it along the screen, whatever angle you want it to be. That's basically going to be where the player was supposed to swipe. So basically you would position it, and if you see white links come across the white line, you'd press X and it would basically swipe there. So if you get all the white links lined up on the white line and you swiped, it would be successful. And yeah, so that's basically it. The line will basically be where the player was supposed to swipe on the 3DS, and you would control that by rotating it. Now that we're done with the reality shifts, that's how I think that the reality shifts should work. I just went through all of them, told you how I think they should all work. Now the second part is playing with dream meters. Honestly, I'd be okay if they took this out of Dream Drop Distance, but we do need it for certain things such as ability links and such, so I will talk about it. Now the main way that we're supposed to interact with the dream meters is to pet them, and on the 3DS the way you pet them is basically take your stylus and move it back and forth across them, and they just get happy and you get points. And I think the most logical way to transfer this to the PS3 is, instead of using a stylus or anything, you basically use your left analog stick, move it left and right. It's stimulating basically the same motion, and again it's just using the same effort that you use on the 3DS. Instead of swiping your stylus, you're swiping the analog stick left and right, and it won't show a cursor on the screen or anything. It's just that the PS3 will know if you're doing the motion, and the more you do it, the more points you get, and so on. And also there's mini games that you can play with your dream meters. I've played all of them, and most of them consist of either moving your 3DS to control the camera in real time, or either there's stuff on the screen that you have to press. And I think the way they could replace the camera movement is, instead of on the 3DS when you had to move your entire 3DS to move the camera, you could just use the right analog stick to move the camera like how it is in any other game. And instead of pressing the stuff on the screen, like I said before, each button on the screen could be mapped with a button, instead of the X, triangle, square, L1, R2, anything like that. So each thing on the screen could be mapped to a button, and you press that to activate the button. And yeah, that's the most logical way I can think of it, and the most simple way without making it too overcomplicated. So that's how I think playing with dream meters should be changed, and I've already talked about how reality shifts should be changed, and that's basically all it. Other than those two features in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, there's nothing that really heavily lies on touch system. But if there is, if I did forget something, remember to remind me down in the comments below. If you guys did enjoy this video, remember to leave a big thumbs up, and remember to leave a comment down below. Remember to share the video, and remember the possibilities for Kingdom Hearts Unlimited. Later.